everyone. I'm Jim Longworth, and welcome to another edition of Triad Today, coming to you once again from our home away from home, the beautiful Senior Botanical Garden in downtown Kernersville, which we hope you'll visit. We'll tell you more about that later on. Speaking of later on, that's when our roundtable shows up, and we'll talk about all sorts of things that are election related. We'll make our election predictions at the end of the program. Between then and now, we have lots of great guests coming on, some great information for you. But we want to start out talking about hospice care, understanding more about it, especially during these difficult times under the pandemic. With me now is our good friend, Christy Bird, is Director of Family Services for Mountain Valley Hospice and Palliative Care. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a while, but it's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
What challenges have you and your team faced in providing hospice care during the pandemic in terms of, well, it could be anything, taking precautions, making it safe for family members, patients, staff. How is that affecting you?
Sure. So I even think, the obvious is they're having to wear masks at every visit, masks, goggles, gloves, trying to keep everyone safe. So that's, kind of an obvious challenge. Some of the other challenges we're facing is, not being able to come to the office to even pick up supplies, so having to have those delivered outside so you can come by and pick them up from your car. And then just, having camaraderie with your coworkers. They're used to seeing each other and being together and supporting one another. So having to find new ways to do that.
And as we've talked about on the show before, an overwhelming percentage of people who are under hospice care do so and receive it at their own home, and that's what they prefer.
Right.
So you don't have any problem coming in there, everybody's safe and masked and all that, right?
Right.
Now, but there are two lovely hospice homes that you operate for folks who need that in their particular situation. During the pandemic, are family members able to visit a loved one who's under hospice care in one of your hospice homes?
Absolutely. We offer visiting hours from 11 to 8 every day. So families can come and visit their loved ones. They do have to go through the screening process, making sure they're not running a temperature and go through the COVID screening questions. And then they're actually entering our patient rooms from the patio, so from the outside, so they're not having to walk through the building. That, obviously keeps our staff safe from exposure, but also our family members from exposure. Right. So that way they can come in, a couple can visit at a time, and then they can switch out if they want to. That way everyone gets the opportunity.
That's right. Now, let me talk for just a second, or ask you for just a second about grief counseling, because it's something I've talked about before. It's offered for adults, but it's also good for kids if you've lost a loved one to a serious illness, and that's whether we're in a pandemic era or not. It's just a general question. How do you help people through grief and with grief counseling, and how is it different for kids?
So sure, we offer obvious bereavement counseling to our patients and families when a loved one has passed, but we also offer bereavement services to the community at large. So if anybody's experienced a loss, they can reach out to us for counseling. We do have a Kids Path program that covers hospice, palliative care, and bereavement. We have a dedicated Kids Path counselor. Her name's Katie Moser, and she's available to help children. And really one of the things with children is, they'll have the same kinds of sadness. They might cry, they may lose their appetite, they may have trouble sleeping, but sometimes there's subtleties with children when they're grieving. You might have a child who's, typically easygoing, and now they're having anger outbursts. A child who's 8 or 9 years old who starts wetting the bed that they haven't done since they were 3 or 4. So, looking for those subtleties, knowing your child or the guardian knowing their child, and what those subtleties might look like, and then they can reach out for help.
The final thing before we lose time here, let me just put you on the spot about dealing with depression, because we're coming into winter. A lot of people get depressed during winter anyway, plus we're in pandemic, plus you may have a family member who's seriously ill. Can you give a quick tip on dealing with depression?
Sure. So I think during this pandemic and being with your loved one is really sitting back and thinking about the opportunity that you're having to spend this time with them, that, the busyness of life has kind of calmed down for all of us because of the pandemic. So just being able to allow yourself to be in that moment with your loved one can help. And then obvious self-care to me is a big deal.
Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself, try to...
Yeah, and don't watch too much bad news on TV.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Don't watch bad news.
All right, up on screen, mtnvalleyhospice.org, which stands for Mountain Valley Hospice.org, mtnvalleyhospice.org, or you can call 888-789-2922 for an appointment, or just to talk and set up a time to learn more about it. Chrissy, thanks for everything.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be right back today, and we owe so much to our military veterans for what they do for us. And the least we can do for them is to offer some services that can help them get back in a good job, get back in the workforce. And we have a special guest with us right now who's going to talk about that and many other things in the way that she helps veterans. Next to me is Katie Walker, Veteran Services Employment Specialist at Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jim.
What's the mission of the Goodwill's Veteran Services program?
Our mission with the program is to connect our veterans to employment and other resources that can assist them in ways that we aren't able to assist them. We try to help them with the employment and get on their feet if they're struggling with housing, things like that. And
Yeah, that's you say housing. Give me an example. You don't have to give a whole list. Maybe an example of one of the services that people may not realize that are offered to veterans.
So if we have a veteran who is currently homeless and not having anywhere to live other than in their car or on the streets, they can come to us and we can assist them with getting on their feet, whether it's financial means or working with a different community resource that we both team up and assist to get them into a home. And then we have other community resources that help with housing. And that's when we will also step in and assist with the employment factor so they
You
can
do
self-sustain.
job training, and I think you can even lead them to financial assistance too. Is that right?
We do. So we offer all kinds of job skills training, whether it's forklift or unarmed security. And then we do customer service trainings, things like that. And after they finish the training, we work on their resume to kind of build them up for interviews and such like that.
It's like a veteran said one time before when they heard we were doing a thing on Goodwill, segment with Goodwill, and they said, "Well, that sounds great, but I have a wife and a son and a daughter. Do you help other people other than Can it be also in their family or what? How does that work?"
Absolutely. We work with spouses. We also work with caretakers. So people who take care of the veterans, we also assist them with skills training and financial needs and also employment.
Now, what should somebody do? What steps should they take if they want to try to avail themselves? If a veteran or family member of a veteran wants to avail themselves of veteran services at Goodwill, what do they do? What steps do they do?
So to get into our program, it's a very quick, easy enrollment. Just bring proof of military. If you're a spouse, then marriage certificate. If you're a dependent that lives in the home, bring birth certificate. And we just do a quick enrollment and we're ready to go. Reach out.
And during the pandemic, of course, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So what do you have to do? Make specific appointments because you can't have big crowds or what?
Right. So with COVID, we're currently still on lockdown at Goodwill. So we do have to have appointments, which is where we have our veterans or new enrollments call the Goodwill and they'll put them directly in touch with me and I'll schedule an appointment time, tell them the documents, and they come and we do that 45-minute enrollment and ready to go.
I just think that's great. Up on screen, goodwillvetservices.org is the website where you can find out some specific information about that. For the radio listening audience, goodwillvetservices.org. And the general website is goodwillnwnc.org, which we hope you will visit as well. Katie, will you come back sometime? Let me know how it's going.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thanks for coming. We'll be right back today, and I'm sure we've all watched these crime shows on TV, and you'll see people convicted or going on trial and that kind of thing. You don't hear too many people talk about how you clear your record. We're going to do that. Something that comes under the heading of expungement. I'm going to learn about it with this very special guest. Anastasia Tramatozzi is an attorney with Dummett Fraden, Attorneys at Law. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Nice at the garden, isn't it?
Oh, it's
Very
beautiful.
pretty out here.
Very, very beautiful.
Now, what does it mean to have a charge against me expunged? What does that mean?
Right. So an expungement is a legal process where an individual can petition a court or go in front of a judge to have one of their charges removed completely off of their record. When you're charged, whether you're found guilty or not, that charge will show up on your criminal record. It will just be there.
And so you petition to go before a judge, not a jury, but a judge.
A judge.
Now, did you email me something one day about a new law that's going to go into effect in North Carolina? What's that about? How is that going to affect what we just talked about?
Right, exactly. Yes, I did. In December 2020, this coming December, a new law is going to be passed that's actually going to broaden the scope of expungements and broaden the scope of eligibility of individuals who can apply for an expungement. There's a number of different ways that the law is going to change, but one thing which I think is important to note is right now, under the current law, if you have a felony and you're charged with something that's been dismissed, Let's say the state erroneously charged you, there was not enough evidence to convict you, you're innocent. That charge shows up on your record.
Even though
because
it's
it was-
dismissed in court, it's
even
showing up on my
though-
record?
Even though, and right now, if you have a prior felony on your record, you can't get those dismissed charges expunged. They'll just remain there.
I hate to act like a 9-year-old, but that's not fair. I
Exactly.
mean, if something's been dismissed, I think people will assume it's gone.
Right.
So now we're saying, hey, you better call up folks like Dummett Fraden or talk to somebody that can help you get before a judge, because if you don't, it's just going to hang over you, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, is there a difference between misdemeanor charges and felony charges? Does it make it any easier to get certain things expunged, or what?
There's different criteria that you have to meet if you're trying to expunge a convicted misdemeanor versus a convicted felony. The criteria is similar, but if you want to expunge a felony, for example, you have to meet three things. You have to wait 10 years after that felony has been convicted. During that 10-year period, you can't have any other charges. You can't pick up a single charge. You also can't have a prior felony on your record, and you can't have certain misdemeanor charges that are exceptions. I'll go over those exceptions.
But if it's a misdemeanor thing that's on your record, that's usually easier to get. You don't have to wait as long, right?
That's right. Misdemeanors, the waiting period, the waiting period is only 5 or 7 years when you have to wait.
Now, other than the obvious of, hey, expungements can be good for you because it doesn't hang over or stay on your record, other than that, what's a benefit of having something expunged?
The benefit of having something expunged is anytime you're applying for a job, if you're trying to get a loan and you want to buy a house, or if you're even trying to lease a property.
I have to say that I'm a convicted felon if I don't have it expunged.
Right, exactly. You have to say you're a convicted felon, and those agencies will often pull a criminal record, and they'll see those charges. Even if it's dismissed, as we already discussed, they're going to see those type of charges, and that's going to disqualify you from a lot of positions that you could be qualified for.
But if I go to you and you help me get in front of a judge and we have a record expunged, and then I go apply for a job the next week, and he says, have you ever been convicted of a felony? I can say no, right?
You can say no if that charge has been expunged. It
Okay.
usually takes about 1 to 3 months for the expungement to process through
Okay.
the court system, but you can say that you have not been convicted because the charge has been expunged.
Fascinating stuff. I'm glad you told us that. Up on screen, dummettfraden.com is the website, or you can call 877-978-3218 to find out more information about this or some other services, or that's a good way to get in touch with Anastasia. Thanks for dropping by.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
All right. We'll be right back after this. On Triad Today, and what a trio of gentlemen I have with me now. They're going to talk about a very important industry to this state, the aerospace and aircraft industry, and we're going to get into all sorts of things, including unmanned systems, which we refer to as drones. Let me introduce them to you now. David Mounts, of course, Chairman and CEO of Inmar Intelligence. He's hosting this and in his beautiful facility today. Next to him, Basil Yap, who's Vice President of HovCon. And Michael Bond is Chairperson of ATL Partners and also Chairperson of Winston-Salem UAS Core Team. Guys, thanks for being here. David, I'm going to start out with you. You and I have talked many times about innovation and technology, and today in this segment, the sky really is going to be the limit, because you said that you're interested in unmanned aircraft systems, which we will commonly refer to as drones. Why have you become involved in that?
Well, my whole career I've been a logistician and an aviator, and so I'm always interested in things that are going. But you also know innovation, bringing innovation to the community is very important, and it's a way that we create opportunity for our community. This is an area where North Carolina has a birthright to win. We have been a community, we were first in flight, we've launched very large aviation industries, and we have clusters of aviation throughout North Carolina, in particular Western North Carolina. And this is the next area, the future of flight, and it's important that we get prepared and we make an impact in this area.
Michael, how important is, in general, how important is the aerospace and aviation industry in North Carolina, and why should we even be interested in drones?
Well, commercial aviation's been one of the most important industries in our country, $900 billion in sales last year. And it's an area where we exercise a lot of leadership globally. We're a leader in the aerospace industry nationally. Most of our products, much of them anyway, are exported throughout the globe. But as large as that industry is, it's about to get a whole lot larger. Morgan Stanley says that UAS, unmanned aircraft systems, will be a $1.5 trillion market just within the next 20 years.
Wow.
So more than double the size of that market.
Well, let's piggyback on that, Basil. Bring us up to speed on how the state has positioned itself as a leader in this area with UAS.
Yeah, so in order for innovation to really kind of foster in this airspace, specifically with drones, they needed to kind of address the community concerns. So in 2013 and 2014, North Carolina established some laws around the privacy and safety of individuals on the ground. And when we were able to address those concerns, then we could start building that ecosystem here in our state. And so a presidential memorandum was released in 2017, which really asked the question, what does industry want to do around drones that they can't because of the regulatory red tape? And so North Carolina submitted a proposal to partner with industry to kind of explore these options. And so we were one of 10 selected sites in the US to start some really leading edge drone delivery operations here in the state.
Well, Michael, the drone technology, the way that Basil's talking about it and David's talking about it, is not some futuristic science fiction thing. I mean, it's now.
It really is, and I think people will be surprised to really understand how drones are being used. For many people, they have an image perhaps of the consumer product being flown in your backyard. It's way more than that.
David flies into my backyard with his plane, and I don't appreciate it.
You got an FAA contact here.
Yeah, there's North Carolina laws around that. So.
All right, go ahead.
But we're home here in the Triad to two world-class health systems. Both of them are using drones now to pioneer new ways of getting home health care direct to the consumer, direct to the patient.
Wow.
Wake Forest here is working with UPS now to deliver personalized cancer therapies from their centralized pharmacy at Baptist Hospital to cancer clinics remotely located, saving time on a really short shelf time, high value product.
Very quickly, in about 10 seconds, Basil, give me one quick example of how drones help the community.
A great example is law enforcement and public safety. They can use a drone as a de-escalation tool. It gives a situational awareness of what's happening in the community, helps us allocate resources better, both law enforcement and fire and rescue.
David, where do we go from here?
Vertical takeoff and landing, both electric and propulsion, other propulsion power systems. You're going to see us air taxi. Goods and people are going to be moving through the air in what will appear to be large drones.
So you'll have some company as you pilot your plane. Hopefully not too close to a drone.
We're all
but you'll have
coming to your house, Jim.
No, don't come. Don't come to. I don't want any of these guys in my house. Up on screen, nmar.com for Nmar Intelligence. Please check that out. And once again, David, thanks for hosting this segment here. Beautiful facility. And to Michael and Basil, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jim.
We'll be right back. Today, just about time for the roundtable. A quick shout out to say that I hope you pick up your copy of Yes Weekly and enjoy my column in there. And also, thanks again to the good folks here at Senior Botanical Garden. You can go to their website, which is up on screen now, seniorbotanicalgarden.org. Please do that. Now, we're going to do predictions on the elections. I will not chime in with my opinion for two reasons. One, because nobody cares what I think. And number two, because next week we'll have our voter education special, and I'll be interviewing some of the folks we're talking about, and that wouldn't be fair. But we do have three folks that will chime in, and a special guest among them. On my right, but always a political left, Ogie Overman, the great broadcaster and journalist. Next to him, and sort of social distance back there, is our Congressman, Mark Walker, who's paying a special visit in here. He's going to be stepping down from the musical chairs gerrymandered 6, which he used to represent. And so we have him for right now. And Keith Granberry, founder of Helping Hands Consultants. Guys, welcome to the program. All right, we're going to run through these races and get as many in as we can. The first one is the 5th Congressional District. Virginia Fox has been the Republican incumbent there since 2004. She's challenged by David Wilson Brown, a Democrat, and an IT consultant. Ogie Overman.
Well, that district is so white and so rural that a Democrat does not have a prayer, not a prayer in that district.
Congressman.
Yeah, it's the R36, which is impossible right now for anybody to win but a Republican, so that's Virginia Fox's seat.
Keith.
Virginia Fox's seat, unfortunately.
And you think it'll be a blowout then, right?
Absolutely blowout.
All right, go to the 6th District, which is not the same 6th District as Mr. Walker represents, because it's all been gerrymandered around, and so there's no incumbent there, as it were. Kathy Manning, the Democrat attorney from Greensboro, facing Lee Haywood, a Republican, who's the party chairman in that district. Manning versus Haywood in the new 6th. Ogie Overman.
Well, much as the congressman can attest, that one is leaning now Democrat. I think Kathy Manning is probably going to waltz into that one too.
Congressman, this affected you personally because you made a decision not to try to compete in a district that was that skewed. So how are you calling this race?
We've saved our resources to potentially do something in the future. It's now redrawn in a district where Hillary Clinton won it by 22 points. Lovely Haywood, if he pulls it off, it'll be the biggest story in the political cycle.
Right. And you said, the rumor is that you might be trying to run for the U.S. Senate seat that Richard Burr is giving up in 2022. Is that more than a rumor?
We're in this period of processing and prayer, and we'll know more here maybe in a month or so.
Keith Granberry is going to run for that seat too.
Process and prayer means he's absolutely going to do
That's
it.
right. All right.
He's
Keith,
praying that he get more money so he can run.
Keith,
Let's see here. I think that it was drawn up for a Democrat, and
so you think Manning
and I
gets it?
think Manning gets it, especially during the presidential campaign.
The 13th district has been redrawn as well. Our friend Ted Budd is the incumbent, sort of, if you can call it an incumbent, in a newly drawn district, but it stretches across parts or all of 10 counties. It's kind of a mess. But anyway, Ted's been in there since 2016. His challenger is Scott Huffman, a Navy veteran from Rowan and a businessman. Ted Budd and Scott Huffman. Ogie Overman.
Well, here again, that district is solidly Republican, so I don't think there'll be much of a contest there either.
Your friend Ted Budd, is he going to have an easy go of this, or what's your prediction?
Well, they're solid Republican, and then now this seat is the #1 most Republican district seat in the country, so it's going to be Ted Budd all the way.
Golly. How does this, we don't have time to get into this, but come back sometime next year. Let's talk about how these things happen, even when we know gerrymandering is messed up. How even in gerrymandering do things get that skewed? But anyway, Keith Granberry.
Well, we know how they happen. The legislators create these districts so they can keep power, so we understand how they happen.
So Budd and Huffman.
Bud.
What do you think? Ted Budd?
Ted Budd, all the way.
All right,
Absolutely.
let's go to Lieutenant Governor. Yvonne Lewis Holley, Democrat who's a former state legislator, will go up against Mark Robinson, a Greensboro native. He's tried several businesses, and I'm not going to make any comment there, but he really sort of came to prominence when he made a speech in front of the city council, among other things, standing up for Second Amendment rights and some other things. So anyway, he's sort of a YouTube sensation. I don't know about this race. Democrat Holley, Republican novice Mark Robinson. Ogie?
Well, luckily the political winds are going to get Holley in there, but this Mark Robinson cat, he's a scary dude. He is a scary dude.
In what way?
He's a gun nut. He's a gun nut. Come on.
All right, Mark.
Well, I like Mark Robinson. I think this guy has caught fire. He's a rock star down east right now. I think he literally has a chance to pull this thing off, and if I've seen some of the internal polling, I'm going to go with Mark Robinson on this one.
Keith.
Mark Robinson does not have a chance. I don't know what kind of rock star he is, but his policies are terrible.
In the governor's race, Roy Cooper, who only comes out of Raleigh, he leaves Raleigh like once every 10 years, I think, but he stays in Raleigh and does things. Roy Cooper, that's my little comment about Roy Cooper never showing up for this program, versus Dan Forrest, the Republican lieutenant governor, who's been at that post since 2013. Guys, Cooper has just a commanding lead on this. Any comments you have, Ogie?
What do you got against good old Roy?
Well, we don't have a half an hour. We don't have a half an hour.
I think the Democrats got this one.
You really do?
I do, yeah.
Mark, Roy has a big lead. What do you think?
It would be an upset, but remember in 2016, Dan Forrest got more votes than Pat McCrory did. He's got a lot of grassroots support out there, so it's going to be interesting.
Keith Granberry.
This is an interesting thing because the presidential race is so close, but the governor's race seems to be a blowout. So it's kind of interesting whether the governor race influenced the presidential or whether the presidential influenced the governor race. But I still think Roy Cooper is going to win.
All right, now we move to the U.S. Senate race. Tom Tillis, the Republican incumbent, being challenged by Cal Cunningham, who, as we all know, ran into some major marital sexting scandals a couple weeks ago. I don't know what effect that's had. We've talked about it a little bit on the show. What's your final thought on where this is going, Ogie?
Final answer. If this had happened 6 months ago, Cal would be toast. Luckily for us, and I don't like it, Jim. I'm not happy with it. but I have no choice but to hold my nose and vote for the guy. So he's going to eke it out, eke it out.
A Democrat holding his nose, Mark. Have you ever heard of that?
Well, yeah, I've actually seen it, and I just heard it a time or two.
What do you think between yeah.
Listen, I think it's moved. I think this was Cal's race 3-4 weeks ago. He had a 6-point lead. It's now within the margin of error, and I think this could impact enough that Tom could sneak past him here.
Keith, quickly.
I think Cal is going to win because of everything that's going on around this country. His issues aren't as big as they would have been several years ago, so he's going to win.
All right, the final one, guys. When I ask for a prediction on Biden versus Trump, I want you to first say who takes North Carolina, and then second, who takes the presidency between Biden and Trump. Oh, Gil.
I've got, I've been looking at the polls, 538 and all the good ones. It's Biden by 4 in North Carolina and Biden by 8 nationally.
Mark.
I think Trump wins North Carolina, and I hate to take the one pass, but I think from what we're seeing internally, it's too close to call. I think it's Biden's to lose right now. If Trump can deliver over the next 2 or 3 weeks, he may can build on some momentum.
Keith.
I agree with him. It's Biden's to lose, and but I think that Biden ekes out North Carolina.
All right, guys. Mark, again, thanks for showing up.
Always
and
a privilege.
Hope you'll be
Good
back
to
with
be
us
with you.
after the first of the year. Hope we can get you back on here, too.
Look forward to it.
Remember to watch next week, watch our voter education special, and then the roundtable will be back to look at what happened at the elections on our first show after that in November. So for all of us here at Triad Today, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you.